She had it a devoted husband, a stunning home, and a life that seemed picture-perfect. But one forbidden affair was enough to unravel everything. What started as stolen moments of passion soon spiraled into a tangled web of lies, betrayal, and heartbreak. As secrets surfaced, a marriage crumbled, and the life she once knew shattered beyond repair. This is a tale of love, deception, and the irreversible consequences of choices made. Want more shocking stories like this? Subscribe for more cheating tales. My name is Emily, and I live in Austin, Texas, a city known for its vibrant music scene, diverse culture, and warm, sunny weather. 5 years ago, my husband David and I moved here, eager to build a future together. With David securing a stable job, we envisioned this place as our forever home. It had everything we wanted: peace, comfort, and security, the perfect setting for two people in love, ready to settle down. Those first few months in our new house felt magical. The scent of fresh paint lingered as we slowly unpacked our boxes. David and I worked side by side to create a cozy home, carefully selecting furniture and sharing meals at our small dining table, laughing over trivial things and dreaming about the future. There was excitement. There was hope. In our early 30s, David was the responsible, hard-working type. He poured himself into his job, often coming home exhausted. Yet, he always showed me love in small, thoughtful ways. A bouquet of flowers now and then, a sweet compliment, a surprise date night to keep our spark alive. But over time, I felt something slipping away. The love remained, but the passion and excitement seemed buried somewhere beyond reach. I started noticing the subtle changes. Our kisses became routine: a quick peck before work, a tired goodnight kiss before sleep, both of us lost in our thoughts. The spontaneous affection faded. Our conversations revolved around chores, bills, and responsibilities, but where were we in all of it? Where was the us? Though David was always around, I felt lonelier than ever. Lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, I wondered where we had gone wrong. Why did life feel like a checklist instead of an adventure filled with love, laughter, and passion? And then, there was Ben. He moved in next door on a warm Saturday afternoon. David and I were outside, organizing boxes in the garage, when I heard a voice: "Need some help?" Turning around, I saw him, a tall man with tousled dark hair, deep brown eyes, and an easygoing smile that instantly put me at ease. There was something about him, something that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. Ben had just relocated from out of state and was still settling in. His smooth, confident voice had a way of making everything seem lighter. At first, our exchanges were casual small talk over the fence, quick chats about the neighborhood or the weather. But something lingered after each conversation: an unspoken connection. A spark. Subtle but undeniable. David either didn't notice or simply didn't care. Work consumed him as always, leaving me with endless quiet evenings alone. Slowly, Ben and I spent more time together. It started innocently: brief conversations, chance encounters, a coffee here and there. But as the weeks passed, those moments stretched longer. I found myself looking forward to seeing him. Not just as an escape from routine, but because, with Ben, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt truly seen. And Ben listened when I spoke. He genuinely cared about what I had to say, not just nodding along or waiting for his turn to speak. No, Ben asked thoughtful questions, diving deeper into the things that truly mattered to me. I was taken aback by how quickly we connected. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the neighborhood, Ben invited me over. He was hosting a small gathering for a few neighbors, and since I had no plans that night, I hesitated before accepting. But something about the invitation felt different, like a chance to break free from the monotony. Stepping into his home, the first thing I noticed was the warmth. It felt lived in, cozy, with the inviting aroma of home-cooked food filling the air. There was no pretense, no facade. We mingled with the other guests, but I found my eyes drifting to Ben, watching the way he moved, the way he spoke. Everything about him drew me in. As the evening wore on, and the guests trickled out, Ben and I found ourselves alone in the living room. The air between us had shifted, thick with unspoken words and undeniable tension. I felt the pull and attraction that had been simmering for weeks, now impossible to ignore. Without thinking, I inched closer, my heart hammering in my chest. He didn't step back. Instead, he moved toward me, his hand brushing against mine. My breath caught as I looked up, meeting his intense gaze that seemed to see right through me. And then, he kissed me. It wasn't a simple kiss, it was deep, urgent, filled with longing. It was everything I had been missing, everything I had been searching for. I couldn't pull away nor did I want to. My body responded instinctively, awakening feelings I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. The world faded, leaving only the sensation of his lips against mine, his hands at my waist, pulling me closer. The kiss was electric, leaving me breathless and dizzy with desire. I had never felt anything like this before, not with David. I had never felt so alive, so wanted. Ben's touch was fire, and I was helpless against its pull. We didn't speak after that, but there was no need. The moment said everything. It wasn't just a kiss, it was the beginning of something I couldn't turn away from. Something I didn't want to turn away from. As we stood there, lips still lingering, I knew I had crossed a line. But for the first time in so long, I didn't care. I felt alive. In the days that followed, my life spiraled into quiet chaos. What had started as a fleeting moment of escape had become something far more complicated. It wasn't just about the physical connection anymore, it was about how Ben made me feel. With him, I wasn't just Emily, the dutiful wife, the woman going through the motions of marriage. With him, I felt desired. I felt alive. The feeling was intoxicating, and I found myself seeking him out again and again. But the weight of my secret grew heavier with each stolen moment. David wasn't oblivious, I could feel his eyes on me, his suspicion mounting. His questions became more pointed, his tone more distant. There was something in the way he looked at me now, something wounded. He was trying to reach me, to bridge the growing distance between us, but I had already drifted too far. I kept telling myself I would end it, that I would stop before it was too late. But every time I saw Ben, every time we touched, every time we kissed, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. The truth was a fire burning inside me, growing stronger, threatening to consume everything. But I wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. Then, everything changed. One evening, David came home early. I wasn't expecting him for hours. I had just sent Ben a message about meeting up when I heard the front door open. My heart pounded as I hurriedly tucked my phone into my purse, trying to suppress the panic rising within me. "Hey," David called out, his voice casual, but there was something else there, something I couldn't quite place. "Hi," I replied, forcing my tone to remain even, my heart racing. I stood up quickly, trying to compose myself. David lingered for a moment, studying me, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quiet, searching. I met his gaze, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just a long day," I lied, hoping it sounded convincing. He set his things down by the door and stepped into the living room, his eyes never leaving me. "You've been acting strange lately," he said, his voice low, but the hurt in it was unmistakable. I froze. My stomach twisted. For a brief moment, I considered saying nothing, pretending everything was fine. But I knew the truth was creeping closer, ready to unravel everything. David wasn't stupid, he already knew. I could feel the growing distance between us, and deep down, I knew he deserved the truth. "David, I started, but the words caught in my throat. I wasn't ready to say it to see the devastation on his face when I admitted what I had done. He cut me off, his voice sharp and unwavering. "Is there someone else?" The quiet intensity of his words struck me like a blow. My breath hitched, my pulse pounded in my ears, and for a moment, I thought my legs might give out. How had he figured it out? Had he noticed the way I looked at Ben, the way I spoke to him, the way my thoughts always seemed to drift back to him? I wanted to lie. To tell him everything was fine, that it was just a rough patch, that I was still the woman he had loved all these years. But the truth hung between us, heavy and undeniable. I couldn't hide from it anymore. "Yes," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "There's someone else." David's face paled, his expression frozen in shock. He took a step back, his entire body tensing as the reality of my confession settled in. The silence between us stretched unbearably, each second feeling like an eternity. "Who?" he finally asked, his voice strained. I swallowed hard. "His name is Ben." My voice wavered. "I'm sorry, David, I never meant for this to happen, I never wanted to hurt you." David stared at me, unreadable, his jaw tight. Then, as if the weight of my betrayal had finally sunk in, he let out a short, bitter laugh, humorless and hollow. "Ben," he repeated, his voice thick with disbelief. "The neighbor? The guy you've been spending all this time with?" I didn't respond. There was nothing I could say to soften the blow. The truth was out now, and I couldn't take it back. David's eyes darkened with hurt and anger. "You've been lying to me this whole time," he said, his voice growing colder. "I've been asking you over and over what's wrong, and you just kept brushing me off. You pretended everything was fine. But this is the truth, isn't it? You don't love me anymore." His words cut deeper than I expected. It wasn't just about the betrayal, it was the pain in his voice, the realization that everything we had built together was crumbling before our eyes. "I never meant to fall in love with him," I whispered, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "I didn't plan this, it just happened. I know it was wrong, and I don't know how to fix it." David shook his head, his face hardening. "You don't get it, do you?" he said, his voice filled with quiet fury. "It's not just about falling in love. You lied to me. You hid this from me. You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. You didn't care enough to fight for our marriage." He turned away, pacing across the room, his hands clenching into fists. "All this time, Emily," he said, his voice breaking. "You were with him, while pretending to be my wife. And now you're standing here, telling me you love him?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. What could I possibly say? How could I explain that I had been so lost in my own emotions that I hadn't stopped to see the destruction I was causing, the pain I was inflicting on the man I had once vowed to love forever? David finally stopped pacing and turned to face me, his eyes filled with a mix of heartbreak and finality. His eyes burned with anger and heartbreak as he met my gaze. "I want a divorce," he said, his voice quiet but firm. The words struck like a slap. I had known this moment was coming, but hearing it aloud made it real in a way I wasn't prepared for. Divorce. The word felt foreign, out of place in our lives. "David, please," I choked out, tears welling in my eyes. "Don't do this. We can fix this, we can go to therapy, work through it together." He shook his head, his jaw tightening. "It's too late, Emily, I'm done, I can't do this anymore." I wanted to plead, to make him stay, to take back the pain I had caused. But I knew it wouldn't change anything. The damage was beyond repair. David turned toward the door, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll pack my things. I'll be out by tomorrow." I stood frozen, my heart splintering into a million pieces. Just like that, he was leaving. After everything, after all the years, the memory was walking away. The days after the divorce passed in a blur, each one blending into the next, each one more agonizing than the last. I had thought I might feel relief when David finally moved out, but instead, all I felt was emptiness. The house that had once been filled with warmth and love now felt cold, haunted by memories of a life that had slipped through my fingers. I moved into a small apartment, a far cry from the home I had shared with David. It was tiny, one bedroom, a cramped living room, a kitchen that felt suffocating no matter how I arranged it. But it was mine, and I kept telling myself that mattered. That at least I had freedom. But freedom felt suffocating. The days stretched long, the nights even longer. I buried myself in work, spent hours at the gym, tried anything to distract from the loneliness that gnawed at me. But nothing helped. No matter how I kept busy, I always came home to the same thing, an empty apartment, the silence pressing in like a weight I couldn't escape. And Ben? He was nowhere to be found. I had expected him to be there, to support me after everything fell apart. But instead, he pulled away slowly at first, then completely. The texts stopped. The calls went unanswered. It was as if he had vanished. I tried reaching out, but every attempt was met with silence. I couldn't understand. Didn't he love me? Hadn't he been the reason I risked everything? Hadn't he been the answer to everything I thought was missing in my marriage? I spent sleepless nights replaying every moment, every whispered promise, every stolen kiss. At the time, they had felt so real, so filled with hope. But now, it all felt like a dream, an illusion I had mistaken for something lasting. The truth was undeniable. Ben had been nothing more than a fantasy, a fleeting distraction from a reality I hadn't wanted to face. And the guilt, it was unbearable. It gnawed at me, relentless and unshakable. I had destroyed everything. David, the man who had loved me, who had been a good husband, a good father, was gone. Our children were caught in the wreckage of my choices, and there was no way to undo it. The lies. The secrets. The betrayal. I could never take back the pain I had caused. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had taken for granted. David had been steady, loyal. And I had thrown it all away for a love that had never really existed. One night, after weeks of restless nights and relentless self-loathing, I picked up the phone. I had to apologize. I knew it wouldn't change anything. I wasn't expecting forgiveness, wasn't asking for a second chance. But he deserved to hear the words to know how deeply I regretted everything. With trembling hands, I dialed his number. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. "Hello." His voice was cold, distant, a knife to the heart. "David," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did, and I don't know how to fix it." There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing, but he said nothing. "I never wanted this, David," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I was selfish. I hurt you. I hurt the kids. I ruined everything, and I'm so sorry." When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter but still firm. "Emily, I don't know what you expect from me. We're done. You made your choice, and I'm moving on. I don't think I can ever forgive you for this." His words cut deep, but I had known they were coming. There was no undoing what I had done. No way to take it all back. "I understand," I murmured, my heart sinking. I needed you to know how sorry I am." There was no response. Just the finality of a click as he hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in my hand. That was it. No more David. No more chances to make things right. The weeks dragged by, each one blending into the next. I tried to move forward, to pretend I was okay. But I wasn't. I had lost everything. The life I had once taken for granted was gone, and all that remained were the shattered pieces of a broken marriage and a heart filled with regret. I saw the kids every other weekend. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew things weren't the same. They were too young to grasp the weight of divorce, yet they felt the shift, the tension between their parents. I saw it in their eyes, the sadness, the confusion. And every time they looked at me with those innocent, searching gazes, the guilt threatened to consume me. I had done this. I had broken our family. And I had no idea how to make it better. As the months passed, I began to accept the truth: I couldn't change the past. My life was no longer what it used to be. I had made my choices, and now I had to live with them. There were no fairy tale endings. No dreams of running away with Ben. No hopes of repairing what was broken with David. All that remained was the reality I had created, the consequences I had to face. And as I sat alone in my small apartment, the walls closing in around me, I realized that I had no one left but myself. My actions had led me here to this place of loneliness and regret. No matter how much I wished I could turn back time, I couldn't. All I could do was learn to live with my choices and somehow find a way to move forward from the ruins I had made.